All right, so we're going to get started. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this event at the Middle East Institute. I am Laura Friedman. I'm the president of the Foundation for Middle East Peace. It is our pleasure to be hosting us here with MEI. We are very, very pleased to have this panel today. We have two guests in town from Israel, Palestine. You're both from Haifa, yes?
No,
Nazareth and Haifa. So it's my friend Jafar from Mossawa and Nabila, who is a feminist leader. You're going to get a full introduction from my friend and colleague Debra Shushan from Americans for Peace Now. So I am now going to exit the stage, allow Debra to start this off with introductions, and then she is going to manage sort of an interview discussion. And then when she's ready, she'll open this up to discussion with the audience. So thank you very much for coming.
thank you so much, Laura. Let me see if I can stick this in its appropriate little place here. Can everyone hear me okay? Usually not an issue that I have, but let's just make sure we're good here. So I want to welcome all of you today. This is an extraordinary day. I'm sure I don't have to tell all of you. And on this extraordinary day in this country for very different reasons, I was actually expecting a smaller turnout than this, with many people glued to C-SPAN, and I'm just really glad that you all did come out for this really very important topic related to governance in Israel, peace in Israel-Palestine, and a discussion of the nation-state law with our two very esteemed guests. So let me introduce Jafar and Nabila and say a word or two about the Mossawa Center, say just a very little bit about the nation-state law. Then I'm going to conduct a conversation, as Laura said, with these two wonderful guests, and we will definitely have time for your questions as well. So I just ask you as we go, if you have questions, please make a note. And we'll be sure to provide an opportunity for questions and discussion. We have a small enough group that I think we can do a nice job with discussion. So, Jafar Farah is the founder and the director of the Mossawa Center. It is the Advocacy Center for Arab Citizens in Israel. Jafar is a longtime advocate and activist for civil rights within Israel's Palestinian Arab community. As a community organizer and an activist, he was involved in planning and establishing several organizations, such as ILAM, ACAP, the Arab Center for Alternative Planning, and also the Follow-Up Committee for Arab Education in Israel. Before establishing Mossawa, Jafar worked as a journalist for the local network of Haaretz, and as well also worked as a TV producer. Sitting right next to me on my left is Nabila Espanioly. As Laura said, she is a feminist activist as well as a peace activist. She founded the Pedagogical Center and Multi-Purpose Women's Center in Nazareth called Al-Tufula in 1989, and she served as the director of that organization ever since that time. She has an MA in psychology from Bamberg University in Germany and a BA in social work from Haifa University. Let me just say a few words for those who would like to know more about the Mossawa Center and its mission. The Mossawa Center is the advocacy center for Palestinian Arab citizens in Israel. The organization is about 20 years old, having been established in 1997. And it promotes the economic, social, and cultural, as well as political rights of Palestinian Arab citizens in Israel. It also promotes the recognition of this community as a national indigenous minority in Israel. The center develops programs to promote a democratic society, and it acts against all forms of discrimination that are based on race, nationalism, religious affiliation, social status, gender, and disabilities. Now, just a few words about the nation-state law, which of course we will be discussing in detail, as well as its impact today. The nation-state law is a basic law now that it has been passed in July of this year, which is to say that in Israel, a country that does not have a constitution, it is part of a body of law that is the closest thing that Israel has to constitutional status. The law was passed, it's worth, I think, saying just a word about the context. At the very end of the most recent session of Knesset in July, and it was one of a set of illiberal measures that was passed at that time by Prime Minister Netanyahu's governing coalition, which are likely to undermine liberal democracy, minority rights, and also to entrench the occupation in Israel at the cost of peace. Some of those other measures that were passed during that week included a bill that would not include recognition of surrogacy rights for gay men, and also a very important piece of legislation for those of us who are active on the peace front that would give district courts in Israel the right to adjudicate administrative cases within the West Bank, which is really a step in the slow march toward extending Israeli sovereignty over the West Bank, this process of annexation. So it happened within that context. The nation-state law passed narrowly with the support of the coalition. The vote was 62 in favor, and I believe 55 against. Yes, thank you. So we will discuss, of course, today the impact on democracy, liberal democracy in Israel, the impact, of course, on minority communities in Israel especially, and we'll also talk about the impact on the occupation, given that the law may be interpreted to apply to the occupied territories. So there's a lot for us to dig our teeth into here. So with that, and with the understanding that I will proceed by asking some questions, and I appreciate so much the opportunity to be here with you today and to speak with you. Thank you both so much for being here. I will ask some questions, and Nabila and Jafar will answer my questions as they wish and interject what they like to make sure that they get their messages across as well. So having said that, I want to start with something that happened just today. For those of us who forced ourselves to tear our eyes away from the Kavanaugh hearings, we saw that there were also speeches going on at the UN General Assembly today that both Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave speeches at the UN General Assembly today, and both of them, in fact, addressed the nation-state law. First, we had President Abbas, who said that Israel's Knesset, in adopting the nation-state law, has adopted a racist law that will inevitably lead to the creation of an apartheid state in Israel. It nullifies the two-state solution and is the epicenter of discrimination, said President Abbas. Prime Minister Netanyahu took umbrage at this statement. He said only Israel is denigrated for celebrating its unique identity. He said it was outrageous that Abbas would say that the nation-state law proves that Israel is a racist apartheid state. And he said, what is wrong? He referred to one of the components, one of the clauses within the nation-state law that would demote Arabic from its status as an official language to make Hebrew the only official language of Israel. And he said, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with, in a democracy, with the majority deciding what its official language will be? So I'd like to start from that vantage point in the United Nations and ask both of my guests if they would comment on those two perspectives that we heard at the UN General Assembly today.
Okay, thank you for having us, and thank you for coming in this weather and in this time. Of course, when we will look at the national state law, we have to look at the context as you say, and at the environment that this law has been developed in. This law actually for the last 7 years was on the agenda of the parliament, and within in this time and in this period of time and previous to that, many other laws which were shrinking the space for the civil society organization, for human rights organization, and for the Palestinian minority inside Israel were adapted by this government. Actually, the government, so it is not only the only law that it is problematic and that it's, but in that context we have an atmosphere of laws, creating laws, creating an infrastructure that actually contradict the definition of the state in its all definition. We have democratic and Jewish, and we actually were also struggling around this issue, saying that there is contradiction between being democratic and being Jewish, and we were hoping to see and to strengthen the democratic values within Israel, and we're saying that actually there is a danger for democracy for the last 20 years, 30 years. Some of you have been witnessing that process and that degradation of the situation inside Israel. So the law came as an actual de facto the situation of the Palestinian minority inside Israel. We were saying at least we were in a status of second-class citizen. Normally, I am, as a feminist Palestinian, I was saying we are in the 10th, the Palestinian women, we are on the 10th level after Ashkenazi man, Ashkenazi woman, Sephardi man, Sephardi woman, Russian man, Russian woman, Ethiopian man, Ethiopian woman, recognizing that the fact in Israel, it's not an equal society, it's a society of a lot of diversity, but it's a lot of inequalities. And seeing that we as Palestinian national group inside Israel, we are in that priority of the government, we are at the lowest level of the government. This was the fact, and we were struggling against it, and we were hoping and trying to reach out for the Jewish public and for the whoever care about the future of Israel, to say that this is not the future that we want to see, and there is a hope to change. Now this law comes and put a fact, a basic law, on that hopes, and actually closing the possibility of a political struggle, although I'm not giving up, but it's making the political work much harder, and the de facto situation is legitimized, and giving that in its all the different aspects of the law is actually we see it as it's against any democratic values. If we're speaking about equality, no basic law in Israel has the issue of equality within it. Not only with the national status law now, it's putting discrimination as part of the legitimate tool against the minority inside Israel, but not only against the minority in Israel, because in the wording of the law, there is the speech about self-determination for the Jews within the state of Israel, and they're looking at the historical Palestine or the Great Israel as part of in the wording, it's used both state of Israel and the great Eretz Israel, land of Israel. So, and this is another obstacle for peace and for this two-state solution that we're advocating for, and thinking that this is the only possibility for a beginning. I mean, the two-state solution wouldn't solve the problem, but it will create an opportunity for a better living together, for a situation. That's why I am from, as a person and individual and as a political person, I was and still believe that this is the only possibility for a future within that country, but also recognizing that even the two states wouldn't solve the problem, because we as Palestinian national minority, the 20% of the citizens of Israel, we are there, and we're not going to fly anywhere. We're not going to move anywhere. So you have to deal with us, and you have to accept the fact that our presence. This means that we have to create a common future. And what will be this common future with that law? The law actually closes the possibilities for a discourse which presents alternative for the Jews inside Israel to be part of the Arab world, to be part of the region, to be part of the acceptance, working about the existence of, accepting the existence of Israel would never be by negating the existence of the Palestinians, would never be possible by negating the acceptance of the understanding that historically we have two people here that are struggling for the same homeland, and what will happen? We have different in discourse, we have different in the history, but we have to deal with our differences, and instead of dealing with our differences, we are creating more borders to close up this potential possibilities.
Sure, you want me to answer?
تفضل.
تفضل. الله يزيد فضلك. Look, first I'm happy to be here, to see friends, and to think together what can be done. I think this is an opportunity to challenge this apartheid mentality that has been mainstreamed in the last 20 years by the settlers. This is the settlers' law. They are promoting separation, they are promoting walls, they are promoting discrimination. This is what they are doing for the last 20 years, at least systematically. For us, for the first time, the Arab community was leading big demonstration in Tel Aviv with the Palestinian flags and inviting the Jewish population, come and join us on our struggle. It's not our struggle. It's the struggle of the democratic forces in Israel against the settlers' mentality. They think that what failed in South Africa can work in Israel. They have been implementing for the last 50 years a system of two laws. Law for the settlers and law for the Palestinians. The Palestinians are good to be workers in building the settlements and the factories, and they will be the boss of the land. It can't work. They want to try it with us now. They feel that they are strong enough, and unfortunately the democratic forces in Israel are not clear enough. And I mean democratic forces in Israel, I mean even people like Kahlon, Kulanu, they came on the agenda of like social justice. And this is the proof that social justice in Israel is not enough. Now it's a challenge for us, country without equality, have been promoted also by part of the people here as the only democracy in the Middle East. No, Israel is not democracy without equality. And it's an opportunity for all of us to use it and to build groups that can work for different discourse. The discourse of separation, the discourse of occupation, the discourse of, this was the discourse until now. This is like, they want to shut down the dream. It's like Martin Luther King with the dream, I dream, we dream, Mossawa means equality. This was the dream, equality. There is no equality, and you know why there is no equality in Israel? In any basic law? Not because of this. Because of women's status. Because the religious groups in Israel don't want equality for women and of course not for gay and lesbians, and not for Reform Jews, and we are the list. So in this sense, in the system in Israel, there is classes already. It's just shut down the dream of the Palestinian community in Israel. Now it's either the democratic forces with the Arab community or the settlers. And the settlers today are leading the discourse in Israel. And here, the discourse of Trump is a discourse, is not far away from this discourse of superiority toward the region. We are the owners of this land, we will teach you, we will control you. Now, it will not work because we resist. And it will not work because we have also Jewish progressive forces here in the US, but also inside Israel. And what was done, it's like, guys, it's an opportunity for us. The last election, it was almost about Yidraut Ahronot and Israel Ayom. It was between Sheldon Adelson and his friends, okay, and Yidraut Ahronot. This is an opportunity for us to go for once, for election in Israel, to put on the table which country this will be. Country of occupation, country of discrimination, or country of solidarity, country of democracy, country of equality, country of open borders. The whole failure of the left in Israel that they proposed with Oslo Agreement, Jewish state, actually, they opened the window for the settlers. Jewish state, they will be there, we will be here. Obama, promoted Jewish states and rights for all its citizens. It's similar to this. No, it has to be the agenda that we should promote today. We should put, like the failure of the left in Israel. It's not a question of Abi Gabay or question of, what's his name, Herzog. It's not the question of like these two leaders. It's the question of vision. You have, in any organizational development, in any, the first thing that it's not only to nominate candidates. It's first to check if your vision is still relevant. And the current vision of the progressive forces in Israel is not relevant. It fell down in 2000, in October 2000, when we gave the majority to Ehud Barak, and they killed Arab citizens in the streets. And it was because this whole separation, you will be there, two-state solution, they will be there, we will be here. The Arab minority in Israel is 20%. It's not like the Jewish Americans, 2%, but 20% of the population, you can say, we will guarantee collective rights to the Jewish majority, and we will neglect the Arab minority. So I'm happy that 555 MKs were together this time for the first time for decades actually. They were standing together against this law. I hope that we will be able to go to the next election in Israel on this issue. Do you want to have democracy, or you want to be the state of the settlers, the white settlers, the settlers of South Africa, the settlers of apartheid? And we have to be clear. We are not interested, not we, the Arabs alone. We and the Jewish progressive voices, we have to come out and say clearly, this is not the vision, this is not the future that we want to design for ourselves and for our kids. And we have to be clear also here in the US. You have midterm election here, guys. It's very important that you go and vote, but it's very important to tell the American decision makers, especially in the Democratic Party that sit today in the opposition here, hey, if you will go back and control the White House, make sure don't sacrifice the minority rights. Because when you sacrifice us in your policy, foreign policy, then somebody will understand that he can create an apartheid regime inside Israel. We have to be clear from now. This is an opportunity for us to campaign and to shift the discourse in Israel, and if we lose it, it will be, the settlers today are planning confrontations between the Arab community and the state institutions in between now and the election. You were there in October 2000. You saw the our commission report, guys. We know that nothing happened. To strengthen democracy, it means that we have to face the reality in Israel and to learn the lessons from what happened until now. This is an opportunity for all of us. We have to take it because many Jewish citizens, even louder here, even the ADL, they stand and said, like, this is an apartheid. It's not accepted. This is an opportunity for all of us to come back to Israel, to come back to the Jewish public and say what you want for the future of your kids. We will not accept to be second-class citizens and not seventh-class citizens. We will fight for our rights. We expect you, and I'm sure that the gathering here and all our meetings is part of the solidarity. But solidarity is not enough. Solidarity will mean that you should tell your representatives, your decision makers here, to support minority rights when it comes to Israel, and to support us and cooperate with us to build the real democracy in Israel and also in Palestine. And to end the occupation is not the end of the story in the Palestinian side. We need to have also democracy in the Palestinian side.
Thank you so much to both of you. I have two questions that I want to proceed with from this point that I think are related, and I'll let you address them as you will, of course. I won't let you. I'll invite you to do that. So I want to start with the A word that you used several times, Jafar, in your answer. I'm referring, of course, to apartheid. This is a word that Jewish Americans, liberals, even those who are critical of Israel, have for a long time been. No, to the contrary, I would say if we've been using it, it's been warning that Israel might, we have to prevent it from sliding into an apartheid-like state. But there's a real, particularly because Jewish Americans were so active in the struggle in South Africa, there's a real, I think, visceral desire not to see Israel as comparable to the situation in South Africa under apartheid. So I'd like to give you the opportunity, should you choose to accept it, to talk about it in concrete terms, both for those here and for those who may watch later, as we're being videotaped here for posterity, to talk about specifically, what do you see, how is Israel developing into a state for which the term apartheid would be appropriate? And specifically, in terms of the nation-state law, how is the nation-state law moving that process forward in a disturbing fashion? So that's my first question, which I'm sure would be enough in and of itself. But I want to bring up something that also comes out of the comments from both of you, and that has to do with solidarity with progressive Jewish Israelis. I'd like to know your sense of the extent to which you're seeing progress on that front in terms of forging alliances with Jewish Israelis, and are you satisfied with what you're seeing? Do you think there's support for the kind of vision that you've just articulated here?
Separation in housing somehow is important. Separation in workplaces somehow is important. Separation of families, okay? Since 2003, there is a temporary law. It will not be temporary law anymore. When we went to the court to say, hey guys, mixed marriages, we are 1.5 million Palestinians that have to get married to only 1.5 million. It's like to tell Jewish Americans get married only from Jewish Americans. Some people like this idea. But you prevent Palestinians living inside Israel from falling in love and married with Palestinians from East Jerusalem or from, there is a village called Baqa, a city called Baqa al-Gharbiya, there is Baqa al-Sharqiyya, there is Barta'a, and Barta'a al-Sharqiyya, like villages on the border. No, you can't marry. I go to the bank, and the guy there, his name is Subair, he's keep telling me, okay, when my wife, like for 17 years they are married, they have kids and etc. They have to go to Jordan to fly because they can't fly from Ben Gurion Airport because his wife can't get an Israeli passport to allow her to fly from Tel Aviv airport. This separation, if you go today to the Supreme Court, they will reject the appeal. They rejected the appeal already in the past, but it was temporary law and security reasons. Today there is no need. Already in 2 cases, the courts in Israel said, we will use this law. This is a basic law. Today there's, it's a new law and there is no regulations, and already judges in the Israeli courts are using it. So for example, a kid, and I saw it, a kid was on an electronic bicycle. He was stopped in Haifa, and they give him fine for 1,000 shekels. Fine, 1,000 shekels. 13 and a half years old. And I came to the police officer and said, you ask the kid questions, you don't understand what you ask him. You have obligation to investigate him with his parents or somebody else. The answer was, the police officer, it's a Jewish state. 1,000 shekel, this kid have to pay 1,000 shekel on behalf of the Jewish state. This police is not willing to understand that the law, there is an obligation. You have to sit with this kid with his parents, and you have to talk to him in Arabic. No, the answer is Jewish state. So practically, from Arabic language, which in any case, it wasn't, the Arabic language didn't have real, strong status already, laws haven't been translated, speeches in the Knesset haven't been translated. So already the status of Arabic language, for example, broadcasting, public broadcasting in Israel is not broadcasted in Arabic, it's translated and dubbed only after 12 o'clock in the night. So, let me say the Russian language is stronger than the status of Russian language. So practically, if you will go today with many issues to the Supreme Court, you will be rejected. More than that, there is a law that says equality. We went against a website that was used to promote employment of Jews only. There is equal opportunities law that, it's part of the achievements of the civil rights movements in Israel. 20 years ago, we did this good job. We went to the court, we said, this website should be shut it down because it's promote only employment of Jews. And there's a law that says it's illegal. It took us years in the courts until somebody and it was before this new law. So we won the case, compensation of 40,000 shekel with IRA actually, the Israel Religious Action Center, we did that in solidarity. And today, I'm not sure that we will win the case. Okay, so with the basic law, actually, the historical achievements of the civil rights movement in Israel will be Is it apartheid today in the way that South Africa was? I can't say, but we are in the way. If the situation in the occupied territories is worse than the situation in South Africa, in many cases, yes. In many cases, what's going on in the occupied territories is similar, and in some cases is worse. Look at Khan al-Ahmar, and look at Al-Araqib. You smile because you know Khan al-Ahmar. But most international actors don't know that Al-Araqib was demolished for 130 times. Because we are the Arab minority in democracy, nobody thought that we are suffering in a way that also in Khan al-Ahmar today, the evacuation of Khan al-Ahmar is actually has been presented to the international community, and it's part of the truth, that it will end the two-state solution and will divide the West Bank actually. So why you need to demolish unrecognized village in the Negev? Because there is no land. There is enough land. If you were in Israel and you drove from Beersheba to Eilat, you know that it's empty for 4 hours. So it's not a question of land. It's a question how we will humiliate the humans that are living in these lands. And this is the case of apartheid regime. If we will be silent and we will not build solidarity with the Jewish progressive forces in Israel, yes, because fascism will be happy to see silent people, because then he think that he can be more violent against civilians. And this is the historical experience. This is the Jewish people experience. It's not only our experience.
And of course, there are many examples of what is the potential of that law. Like if we take Hiran and what we struggled for Hiran and how the Supreme Court has decided about Hiran prohibiting from creation of a Jewish only settlement, but then the committee of the Hiran has stated to whom they are building, who can be admitted in that. And with the admission law, there is a possibility for a committee to decide who is entering and who is not. And this law enables the committee to have only an ethnic or national criteria for admitting in one of the villages. So Qa'dan case, which we celebrated for many years, is now passé. We have no Qa'dans anymore possibility in the existing of that law. And similar other issues that when we speak about culture, when we speak about language, when we speak about support of filmmaking, support of cultural production, and so on and so on and so on. It's only a issue of time. And the question of solidarity with progressive Jewish voices, and here I want to ask ourselves what is progressive, and to rethink the concept of progressive Jews. What our experience was that the left in Israel has aligned its discourse and aligned its positioning with the right wing. As much as when the right wing went more right and more radical, we saw more and more Jewish progressive voices are controlling themselves and making censorship about their positioning and positioning themselves so that they will be attracted to the public opinion, and the public opinion went right, so we are more careful with our wording, with our positioning, and this question, I think this is something that we have been seeing decreasingly over the years, how this happened, and in many times the audience, when they wanted to vote for someone, and they were looking and saying, oh, it's very similar when we're speaking about segregation and you're speaking about segregation. No, I will go to the origin of the idea, and the origin it's in the right wing, so I vote to the right wing. And I think we have what I'm trying to say today, that we need to rethink our networking and solidarity actions. We have to build solidarity with a new approach, which the approach of the marginalized communities, approach of trying to connect to marginalized groups and groups that are fighting for their rights. I'll give you an example of Haredi women, for example. Can you imagine any solidarity between a Palestinian women organization and Haredi women organization? A Haredi women are not progressive in any of their stereotype mind setting. They are not in the progressive forces, and they will not be connected to the progressive forces. But they are women who are struggling within the Haredi community. They are struggling for their rights to be, and their rights to be voted for or elected, and they are struggling within that community. And for that right, if I connect to my progressive roots, then maybe I will not be able to connect to them. But if I step backwards and think about my values, and think about where I'm standing, what I'm standing for, that these values should be the indicators for my coalition, for my solidarity, then I would say, okay, they are marginalized, and they are struggling for against their marginalization, and as such, I will support their demands for their rights within that community, and I do make solidarity with it. So this is one other way of dealing with the issue, and I suggest for us and for our community to be more of that kind of solidarity. Strengthen and to empower citizens by citizen groups who are marginalized to struggle against their marginalization, and to build a coalitions, a network of marginalized, not of progressive, but of marginalized, of struggling people, because we are all struggling against a system which discriminates us all and which use us all. So we have to think in different ways, and this means that we could reach out for the citizens who are Sephardi Jews, who are Ethiopian, who are Russian in the Russian community, and of course Haredi, especially Haredi women who are really organizing. This means also that to strengthen that voice and to regain confidence of our ability as citizens and citizen group to struggle against the oppression of any kind of oppression is something that we need to strengthen. And this is a new way of looking at the issues, not from progressive lenses, but from value system related indicators.
Thank you both. So I'm looking at my watch here and I'm seeing that the time is proceeding apace with us, and I want to make sure that we do reserve time for your questions and discussion. So in respecting that, I think what I will do is I will ask you two more questions that are burning on my mind, and ask you to address those together, and then we'll open the floor for discussion. Okay, here are my two questions. I want to ask you, first of all, about where all of this is going legally following the passage of the nation-state law. I want to mention that we have already had, as Jafar mentioned, we've already started to see the impact of this law within the courts. And I just want to point out one example that occurred 10 days ago on September 17th. You had a Jerusalem district judge, Moshe Drori, who assessed punitive damages to a Jewish Israeli who was injured in a terror attack by Hamas, and he specifically cited the nation-state law. He cited Clause 6A of the nation-state law as rationale for providing a Jew with additional compensation for harm to his safety. The relevant provision here, 6A, states that the state will strive to ensure the safety of the members of the Jewish people in trouble or in captivity due to the fact of their Jewishness or their citizenship. This led Gidon Levy of Haaretz to proclaim in a very sharply worded op-ed that Israel now has a race law. So I would ask you, if you had any comments on that, which I expect that you might, and what other applications of the nation-state law do you expect might occur next? If you like, feel free to comment on the upcoming court challenges. I believe there are 8 that have been filed before the Supreme Court. How do you think those will go? And then finally, it seems like I have more like 3 questions here. My apologies. You guys can field any of these that you like, and then I promise we will open it up. I do want to talk about internationalizing your strategy. It's no accident that you two are here in the United States. You are obviously seeking the support of Americans, including American Jews, and I'm sure Arab Americans as well. And I'd like to hear about what part internationalization plays in your strategy. Is it because you feel like you've reached a dead end domestically in Israel, or you're pursuing 2 different prongs? Take it away, thanks.
I think that our international struggle or work with the international, I mean, we always saw that Israel is not a separate identity, and it's related to the region, and it's related to the world, and what's happening here impact our situation, and we're just seeing the change here in the administration, how it's impacting our daily life actually, and our struggle. So, but I think over the years, the accumulation of that experience, especially it was from civil society, who was using the international tools like the human rights organization, like Human Rights, who we are since '97 actually presenting the CEDAW Commission with shadow reports as Palestinian NGOs. Since '97, we are writing each time Israel writes a report about the status of women inside Israel. We're writing a shadow report to show where is the convention is going. So it was part of that work. The new strategy is that the new steps is again, it's the work together between civil society organization and the political parties, and this is maybe Jafar can share with you the experience that they have 2 weeks ago in Geneva with the political leaders. And but I think this is a new step where not only civil society organizations are using the platform of international advocacy, but also the political leaders, which also present our awareness of the new status that we are in, and that the struggle can't be only within Israel. I mean, it is the similar process we went in the peace movement. For years, we were struggling in the peace movement inside Israel, and until we said, alone we can't do it, and we were beginning to build partners in the US and in Europe, and you know that process. Most of you know that process, how it went, and it's actually working in some degree. We couldn't promote the piece as we wanted, because we are not the only players, and the issue is that how we struggling back. And I think one of the learning that we're seeing today is to learn from that experience and to reflect on that experience and to reflect on the tools and the ways that we did and where we failed, and why not to fail again in the same mistakes that we did before. But I think this is essential in working with, and especially because Trump administration and Netanyahu administration and all the right wing are very well connected and are very well coordinated and are very well in solidarity with each other. But the other forces, the forces who are against this direction, are not networking, are not cooperating. We continue to work in the delegation. We continue to put borders between my struggle and your struggle, peace now and the peace camp, the other peace camp inside Israel, or the other between the peace camp in Israel and the minority rights. Between these, I mean, what we have been practicing in segregating our struggles is one of the biggest mistakes that we've been doing. Is not to see that the social justice movement, when it was created, didn't make the connection between the fact that there is some of it, that the peripheria groups did the connection between the occupation and the price of the cheese of the cottage inside Israel. But most of the people struggled against the price raise because it's hurt their economic status as middle class, not the poor. The poor were able to see where it's going. They were able to see that the money is going to the military and to the settlements and not to the priority of the citizens of Israel. But we didn't manage to work together, and this is the issue. This is the biggest question. Could we create new networks? Could we work in solidarity? This is something that we're trying here to bring this voice. Is we need to work in solidarity. We need to work in cooperation. Your platform, your network should be in support our struggle, and our struggle should be connected to your struggle, and only in this way, by feeding each other and solidarity with each other and working together, we have chance for to make our discourse and to make our agenda present and achieve something, and not continue the hierarchy of suffering and the hierarchy of struggle, and to go against this hierarchy. This is the demand of today.
Look, after being arrested for almost 50 hours with my son
And having your leg broken.
and having my leg broken.
You know the story?
When
Should
I
tell you.
was, the first time that I was arrested when I was 18 years old, this time I was arrested when my son, he's 18 years old, small son. I have this whole thoughts about like what's going on in this country. You know, I'm not the same kid of 18 years old. And it was clear for me that similar to what happened in October 2000, but today they control, it's not, you know, 2000, Mubarak was the prime minister, the left was. Today, they control, the settlers control the government, control the secret service, and control the court
And the parliament.
and the president. Don't have any illusion, okay? Ayala Shaked nominate judges to the Supreme Court. You know, we hear what's going on here also, the nomination in the US. So these guys, not like our friends in the progressive forces in Israel, think and take time and, you know, like, you know, we don't know what to do with the Arabs. You know, the Arabs didn't vote enough. So the whole game is a game of like, we, the settlers, are going to control with our apartheid vision, and we will oppress you, and we'll put you in the jails and break your leg. That's the vision of the settlers. If you open your mouth as Jafar Farah or as Batselin, you will be beaten and will be jailed. We saw that. I saw it on my body. Now it's either we will say, okay, you know, like yesterday, or we say, look, between now and the next election, we have to fight and we have to change the discourse in Israel. That's our options. I don't want to see my son in the age of 50 being arrested and beaten with his son. I don't want to see that. So in this sense, you ask us where we are going, there is two tracks. Or we will go to the next election in Israel to put equality and to put democracy and to put peace on the agenda, or we will go to escalation targeting the Arab community. The settlers want to target the Arab community because we are the core actors of democracy and peace building and anti-occupation. This is the core, we are 20%. Now we failed to understand how we can be proactive, and we trusted our Jewish friends in the peace camp. They know better than us what is wrong in the Jewish community. No, they don't know. The maximum that we and they can get, and we are getting, with $15 million of the V-15, was 55 in case if you include Yair Lapid with that, all the opposition. If you want to do things different, it's our obligation and responsibility to outreach to the Russian community, to outreach to the Sephardi community, and not to wait for 1 minute to the Ashkenazi left leaders that failed with us to access the Jewish home. It's, you know, the settlers, they know how to get majority. They keep telling us, vote better. No, it's about time for us to work in the Jewish community and to convince the Jewish Sephardi that there is no reason why they should vote for the Likud with downgrading the status of the Arabic language. There is no reason. And when it comes to social justice will not be implemented in Israel if you have to pay the price of the occupation. Somebody has to pay it up. Why the housing prices is going up? Because somebody has to fill the state budget. So if you ask about international community, look, the OECD, the US is part, everybody that is investing in Israel, a lot of Jewish Americans that are investing in Israel, have to know Israel is not sustainable and there will not be economic growth without 25% of the labor, which are the Arab youth. Because the Haredi is getting up, they are leaving the job market, our youth are going to the job market. That's why the Ministry of Treasury in Israel and the business community in Israel understand that the Arab community is important. Go and look at the OECD reports. Since 2010, they always say, if you want to ensure economic growth in Israel, invest in the Arab community. So from one side, you have people in the Ministry of Treasury, you have people in the business side, you have a lot of people that understand the importance of the Arab community, but you have the settlers groups that are taking the political agenda and the legislation. I don't want to wait to the court. I want to invest in knocking the doors of the Jewish community. During our arrest, every police officer, from my child to everybody that was in jail, we were sitting there for 50 hours and talking to each police officer about how much he paid for housing. And that he's friar, that he's oppressing us and serving Netanyahu that don't know which kind of champagne will drink in that night. The corruption in Israel and the occupation are going together. And it's about time that we feel free to outreach to the Jewish community, tough, clear, and also to the Jewish Israelis in parallel. If somebody has to do the work in Israel, he has to understand that people in Europe and people in the US are not satisfied that Israel is still occupying and discriminating and making such pieces of legislation. And the first ones that we hold not only responsible, we hold them responsible and partners are the Jewish people, and this law talk about them. It's the abuse of you as Jewish people that sit here and they want to protect you. No, they put you as Jewish Americans in a risk when they target us in this way.
All right, I want to open the floor up for questions, and I'd like you to keep your questions succinct and, of course, make sure that they are questions. So we'll begin here in the front with this gentleman. Do you want to just tell us your name?
Yeah, hi. My name is Richard Leonard, and I was just curious, given the vision of democracy that both of you, described, what are your thoughts about a one-state, democratic Israel-Palestine?
You take a few questions or one by one? One by one. One by one. It's very easy one.
Yeah,
That's very easy one.
that question.
It's very easy one. You know, like it was for many years. It was Palestinian struggle to get, the international community to say Palestinians have, you remember Golda Meir?
It was the PLO.
Golda Meir said there is no Palestinians.
Right.
We shifted the discourse. With all what we talk about, we shifted the discourse. Everybody knows that there is a Palestinian people and there is self-determination, right of the Palestinian people in building a state. We will not be the one to offer Netanyahu, the settlers, exit. If the Jewish people don't want two-state solution, let them say. Belgium is very nice exercise. You can go to the Spanish exercise. Okay, Flemish, French, Germans, they always negotiate constitution if the Jewish Israelis don't want two-state solution because the settlers don't want two-state solution, let them come to the table of the international community. I think there is different ways to do one-state solution. Let's talk about it. But we will not be the ones to offer the Israelis, the settlers, the exit. Okay, let the international community, I was happy to see Trump yesterday, he don't mind. It will be one state or two state. Yesterday, suddenly, he liked the idea. So, if he liked the idea, let him convince his friends to implement the idea. Why we should give the Netanyahu the exit? Please, like, if you as Jewish Americans or Jewish Israelis don't want this solution, tell it to the international community. Why you ask us, the Palestinians, to give up the dream until all these years of struggle, to start now, to tell the international community, yes, no, we don't know. No, two-state solution, this is what the Palestinians want. If the Jewish Israelis don't want because of the settlers, let them come to Trump and tell him we don't want two-state solution.
Okay, great. Harold, you have the next, Howard, my bad. You have the next question, Howard, excuse me.
Howard Center. Two kind of quick questions, short and friendly. I think immediately after the passing of the law, there was a very vocal outcry from the Druze community, in particular from Druze military officers who are, in fact, very important to the IDF. And I wonder how you see that impacting the political struggle. And secondly, a few months ago, a group of Palestinians and leftist Israelis put together an effort to mount a slate of candidates for the Jerusalem municipal elections. And just a couple of days ago, Aziz Al-Assara, who had been put up as the mayoral candidate, withdrew because he had so much opposition, partly from the Israeli government, but really, I think, frightening opposition from the Palestinian community. And so what does that say about how these political alliances might go and how Palestinians might participate in this political process?
Okay, I think the first question is about the Druze community. I mean, the outrageous reaction from the Druze community is very understandable and very, and it has a good sounding in the Israeli media, and in Israeli public opinion. And quickly they were trying to find a way out, and this way out is something to make another special agreement within to the people who serve in the army, which again is not discussing the essence of that law, but trying to make so that will make us the third-class citizen instead of second-class citizens. So the second-class citizen will be the Druze and Bedouin who are serving in the army, and then the other Palestinian community. But I think one of the Supreme Court cases that this is coming from the Druze community. There are one from the Palestinian community, one from I don't know if the Mizrahi had also they submitted, yeah. So the Mizrahi, one is of the Mizrahi. So they all and Meretz has one, but they all the Minister of Justice was very upset about the fact that the Supreme Court accepted the cases and have a dates for the discussion. But I think if we put all our efforts in that process, it's not going to work. We have to work on different levels and on different to struggle against the law. So I think that there were in the Druze community some voices who were trying to connect to the general, but there were the weak voices, the more moderate voices, the majority voices were ready to accept a solution for that make their status organized in a different way.
So it's very, the government can have an exit on that situation with the Druze community. They can include equality in any basic law. It's very easy. It's not telling that Israel will have equality in basic law. It will not happen because of the Haredi parties. I don't think that the Palestinians in East Jerusalem should accept that occupation. Part of the resistance is to deny and to reject the city council and to say we are not represented by the city council. No, would say more than this. Imagine that the Arab community at a certain point would say, we will disengage from the Israeli fake democracy. This is something not on the table. That we will disengage from the democratic, from the fake democracy, from the political game in Israel. Today, there is a huge pressure on the political leadership of the Arab community to boycott the next election. There is calls to the Arab members of the Knesset to leave the Knesset. Now, from the community, in the last election, it wasn't easy to get 63% of the Arab community to vote. You know, you give legitimacy to a regime that discriminates. And you can fight and you can struggle, but there is also other ways, after 70 years of struggle, that we are doing through political participation. We were 95% who participated in the election, and today we are 63%. One of the strategies that are considered by the Palestinian community today in Israel is to boycott the election and to embarrass Israel internationally when it comes whether Israel is a democracy or not. This is not an easy decision. The decision of the Palestinian people to boycott the election in East Jerusalem is something that has been debated for years. It's not a personal decision. Now I have a mood to be a candidate and go and elect. There is a Palestinian citizens of the State of Israel that are living in East Jerusalem. They can vote. But the Palestinians that have been annexed to Israel as part of this whole annexation legislation that is, everything can be legal in Israel. You have majority, you say apartheid, you discriminate. It's legal to discriminate. Israel, it's legal. So it's legal to occupy in Israel. So imagine that tomorrow we'll decide that a few villages around settlements will be annexed to Israel. This is part of the struggle. So I think, the whole illusion. We will serve in the army, we will get rights. No, you will not get rights. This is the proof. We like it actually, because these people have been living for 70 years with illusion of equality, and they suffered from land confiscation, from illegal houses, from this systematic discrimination, and from violence. And suddenly they discover that they are Arabs. So it's about time to tell everyone in Israel, it's not only if you serve in the army or not. Israel is shrinking spaces also for democratic forces in Israel and the Jewish. So it's about time that all of us unite ourselves and come back to this struggle and say, no, East Jerusalem is not part of Israel. East Jerusalem is part of the future Palestine. The occupied territories is not something that you can, because it's against international law, and discriminating the Palestinian community in Israel is not accepted. We have to go back to the values that we should be the basis of our struggle. And some people in the way, they offered me when I was arrested, 5 days, home jail, go back home.
And be silent.
And my children and everybody else, all the other 20, will be in the jail. But Jafar Farah will be released because Mogherini was saying, how you arrested human rights defender? I said, no, there is a price. There is a price to be citizen of the State of Israel, Palestinian citizen of the State of Israel. And I think the Druze that serve in the army, they pay triple price. Triple price, because they die, they are treated as traitors, and they don't get any benefits as a result of this whole being part of a regime that oppresses their people.
Question over here.
Yeah, I want to turn this a bit. Sorry, to Ross Anthony is the name. I want to turn this a bit because one of the interesting things said earlier that this is an election between democracy and being a Jewish state. And it's really a little bit.
It wasn't said democracy and Jewish state. It was said democracy or separation.
Democracy or separation, okay. But along with democracy comes a struggle for rights. We've talked a lot about struggle. But along with being a Jewish state or not being separated, in the long run, you get to a point where right now there's a majority population, Palestinians, east of west of the Jordan River. You can cut it however you want, but there's a large number of Palestinians that are part of the population. So what that means in the long run is apartheid. I think that's the struggle that's probably going to be more successful. But the idea of struggle, which you have emphasized many, many times, hasn't worked. It seems to me, I think that other than doubling down on that, you might want to think about other ways to go about it. And I also looked at the more recent polling that finds that the youth, particularly Arab Israeli youth, is more and more viewing this not so much as a two-state solution as their preferred option, but as a equal rights. And I wonder if you'll comment about that, because that's a different political approach than's been pursued so far. And I'm not sure it's better, but I would be interested in the comment.
Okay, I think, struggle is beginning to be a bad word. I think it's not about the struggle, it's about what you're struggling for and how you struggle for. And one of the thinking that I try to promote is to reflect on and to learn from our experiences. Even when we fail in some of our struggles that we took on our agenda, even when we fail, like the peace, struggle for peace in the region, and we failed, even when we fail, what we learn from it and how to use what we learn from it for the future struggle. I think the alternative for the alternative to struggle is struggle, but in a different way. Yes, I agree. And there are different ways of struggle. I used to say even the fact that we have some youth who are now integrated in some workplaces, they did it by their own and without any support from or policy toward their positioning in the market, in the labor market, but they struggled for it and they achieved it in their own individual struggle. And one of the issues that I'm saying is always, when you struggle alone, you may achieve things, but when you struggle together and when you bring the forces together, you may achieve much more, and you are you're making the change not only for you, but for others, and you are changing the infrastructure. So what I think that for me, struggle has been and still the agenda that we should resist of any group that is discriminated against or any marginalized need to connect to their voices, to connect to their power, and to organize for change. This is my belief, and I say normally I'm not privileged to think differently. I need to see that there is a hope at the end of the tunnel. I need to see that my work and our work could change the reality. And this is about it. So I am a person who normally looks for hopes and reflect on their role of keeping that hope continuing.
I think we have time probably for just one more. Well, I'll tell you what, here's what we'll do. I see 2 questions. Yeah? Why don't you both throw out your questions, be very quick, and maybe we can have quick answers. Thanks.
So, I'm hesitant to ask this, so it's already been asked, I just kind of wanted to circle back to the idea of one state versus two-state solution. It seems hard to me, I just wonder what your thoughts are on how it's possible to build a coalition of people saying, we need to unite, we need to work together, and at the same time say, ultimately the goal is to be separate. So I wonder if you could elaborate on how it's possible to unite those two segments.
Got it, great, thanks.
Stephen Stern, I've heard you talk about areas of work and areas of opportunity, and the areas of work have to do with linking with all the marginalized communities within Israel, and then there's also an understanding of a demand to be seen as an indigenous minority and a connection to the occupation. You had 55 votes against the nation-state law, many of them within the Israeli Jewish community who I don't think are quite with you in terms of seeing the occupation the same way, or indigenous minority, and the linkage to the social justice work you do also has some difficulties with that. That whole mixture of your work, where do you see these opportunities for solidarity ahead, specific things that you want to do and that we can help with from over here?
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, I think that to understand the reality and the difference in the construction of the communities, and that we're not speaking about the Jewish community and the Palestinian community, we're speaking about the different interests within that community and the different interests within the Palestinian community. To see the diversity among ourselves is a major issue. And to see that many of us are living in marginalized communities and marginalized situations is another step. But it is essential for any solidarity is to come from activists, from people who are acting upon their marginalization. It's not enough to be marginalized to be able to connect to others. To be able to connect to others, you have to feel your power, you have to feel your ability of change. And this is something, I mean, when we discussed the situation for years, we were saying that most of the citizens of Israel, in the Jewish community as well as in the Arab community, are disempowered, right? We have been saying that and repeatedly. They don't feel that they can change the some game. They can't, and we proved for several years that we couldn't change the sum game. 55 against the majority for the last 20 years, right? So one of the option is to think in a different, again, to think different way. Since we analyze it in strategic thinking, you analyze the reality, and then you build your vision, again, then you build your steps. And one of the steps is, if the reality is so divided and is so marginalized, the groups are so marginalized, why not invest in these groups that are marginalized to organize themselves and to offer these groups? And the idea that we're coming with is, we have, as Palestinian community, for the last 25 years, we developed a very strong infrastructure in civil society. We have a lot of experience in building our own organization, and this we can offer to some of these marginalized groups. If we can offer that as Palestinian, and if we come with these abilities as Palestinian, not as someone from abroad, not as someone with a special foreign agenda, but and come and work with these communities too, and support them, like what I did explain about the Haredi women. When we built this coalition with the Haredi women, I'm sure it is a basis for future cooperation. We are from our differences, but I supported them in the Supreme Court case. When they went to Supreme Court, we were one of the organizations that signed for their Supreme Court. We were in the discussion group with them before we were able to meet together and to think and to begin networking with the community of the Haredi women. At the beginning it was on the leadership level, but then we brought it to our communities and we established a forum of cooperation and building together. So it's need to strategize in a different way, and this is one way that we are offering. And yes, you can support that endeavor. And yes, you can if you believe in this strategy, and we are here to offer this strategy for a future possibility of building new networks and new cooperation, and that with the differences that we have, with respecting these differences is major, and building upon not as until now, the left in Israel has looked at the Palestinians community as a pool of voters, and is looking at the Sephardi community as pool of voters, and is looking at the Russian community as pool of voters. And what we are saying, you have to look at us in a different way. We are looking at these different groups as groups who have identity, who has history, different than ours, different than interests, different than others, but the tools to change the situation are the same tools. Organizing, 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 networking, 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 cooperation, 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 and this is what we think that it is possible to change the some game in the future.
Just
That's
last thoughts, yes, for now.
You asked how it's possible to help.
Yes, that's where I ended.
One of your questions, very short answer. Make your work here. The other answer, help us to bring the voice of the Palestinian community, but it's not enough. We need to bring the Sephardi community here. Okay? $10 million that have been given for years by the American administration for peace building, all of them are allocated to our same friends on the Israeli left that failed again and again to bring the voices of the Sephardi and the Russian communities. It's not enough to get the 61 seats. You talk about separation, no, I don't want separation. The proposal for peace that we are promoted is based on inclusion of the Arab Jewish community inside the Middle East. The Jews are not isolated from the Middle East. They try to isolate us, the settlers try to isolate us from Israel. Our proposal is to help the Jewish Israelis to be part of the region for the first time, to open the borders, to talk about peace of reconciliation, not peace of separation. To build democracy in Israel, it means that Israel will be open with open borders. We have 5,000 students that study in Jenin American University, citizens of the state of Israel, but we can't build university. Why? Not because of the right wing. It started from the left wing. The left wing. You know, Jewish American organizations here don't want to listen to us. They know that the work will be done without the Sephardi community, without the Russians. They know. They come here, they come to Israel, and they feed before the election, yalla, we will get the 61 seats. It will not work like this. We know the Jews better than you guys here, and better than anybody else, any other Palestinian. We are coming here. Next time you ask what you can help, next time we want to bring around the table Sephardi leaders that will be an alternative to Kahlon and his party. And we want to bring Russian leaders that will be alternative. You know, the only good news from the last election was that the leaders of the Arab civil society that were able to build the joint list, they became the third political group. Islamic movements will come and sit together and try to build the future together. This is a new way that it's not easy at all. It's not easy. It's the only exercise in the whole Middle East. But I want to see how we will put on the agenda the inclusion of the Jews in the Middle East and stop telling us, you are minority. No, the Jewish people are the minority. They are minority in the Middle East. If they want to be part of the Middle East, this law is isolating the Jews, not only us. And we want to throw this law to the basket and to build a new vision that will say Israel and the Jewish Israelis will become like us, will become part of the Middle East, and the Middle East will not be forest. The Middle East should be a place that will be building, will able to build women's rights, democracy, equality, and etc. So the whole vision that we are coming, we are free today from Jewish superiority. Nobody is telling us what to say. I want the Jews to be part of the Middle East. This whole isolation and segregation didn't work for 70 years. And for the question of the gentleman here about effective and about, lasting. When I was jailed, there was a press interview with me, and it said, for years we were doing a lot but this week was very effective. The week of my arrest and what happened in the Israeli media, talking about police violence, talking about, international, finally Mogherini is calling to release me. Finally, she talked about something related to the advisor of the US, of Trump, the US ambassador, came to see and to talk about what's going on. We were very effective in this week. If we will even be arrested, we can be more effective than the people that are suffering in Gaza from the isolation. The added value of the Palestinian and Israel, we have linguistic, physical, and mental accessibility to the Jews and Palestinians and the Arabs. This is added value that had been undermined by the PLO and by the Jewish Progressive Forces, and we have to stop being, to apologize. No, we are core actors, and we will act as core actors, and we are targeted by the settlers, and we will target the settlers because they are fascist and not democratic group that occupy other people's land and other people's life, and they want to do it also on us inside the Green Line, and it's possible to win.
On that note, I would like to thank Jafar and Nabila so much for joining us today. Jafar, may you not need to be arrested and have your leg broken to continue making progress in the struggle.
But I am ready for this scenario because it happened when I was also these days, but I'm ready.
We wish
We know
you
that this is the direction.
we wish you much luck in your trip and here in the United States. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to all of you.